Welcome to Quilling It, where authors spill the ink on writing, publishing, and promoting your book in today's market.
Hello, and welcome to the pilot episode of our podcast. I'm Paul Regner.
And I'm Lindsay Franklin.
And Lindsay, let me tell you a little story. When I first started writing, I knew nothing. I knew that I liked books. I knew that I liked reading. And that's about it. I hadn't read any craft books. I just knew I think I really want to do this. I really want to write my own stories. I had read enough and just knew that kind of that's where my heart was. I think the only class I could ever think is in college, I took a creative writing course. And that was about all it was to my formal schooling for writing. So I just launched right into it kind of impulsively, and I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned a lot along the way. So my thought was that I'm sure that most of the people that listen to podcasts like this are probably aspiring writers. They really want to learn more, but maybe they don't know where to start, or maybe they have started, but maybe they don't know a lot of other authors, because that's where I was. And so I slowly met authors and learned, and they would tell me people that were maybe had published a few novels already, maybe had worked with editors, and they were really able to help me along the way. So that's kind of where my head is I wish I had a podcast, something like this, where there was a couple of authors that had already published a lot of titles and that were hopefully able to help me to kind of jumpstart my writing and my writing career. What do you think? Is that kind of where your head's at?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have a somewhat parallel story about getting into the industry where I have always been a writer. I was one of those kids who wrote stories, and I had always been a storyteller. It never occurred to me to do that for a job, because that's not a real job, you guys. So it didn't occur to me this could be a career. But at some point in my adulthood, it was like, hey, maybe there are people who do this as a career. Maybe I could be one of those people. And I was very much like you, where I didn't have formal training. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know really anything about the industry. And this was a solid 15, 16 years ago. And so the internet, it was not what it is today at that time. So the amount of information out there, there was some, but it was not how it is today, where you can find so much online, like podcasts and blogs and all sorts of things. So I really felt like I jumped into the deep end with very, very little very little life raft to keep me afloat. And so I really, really love that there are so many more resources out there for new writers, people who are interested in being storytellers, because it is a job, it is a calling, it is all of those wonderful things. It's a hobby, it's all those wonderful things. It can be. So I'm really excited to kind of share our wisdom, maybe.
Yeah, no, totally. And I was thinking too, you mentioned the resources, and that is a huge thing that's different now than say just maybe even 15, 20 years ago. And I, especially for those that might be thinking about going the independent route, because I know you're more of the traditionally published route of, publishing. And I started that way, and now I've gone indie. But it is amazing, the resources out there as far as trying to find editors or cover artists, or typesetters, or all those things, or even getting classes on how to launch a book. And those are also some of the resources I think that we've probably bookmarked and favorited, and we're excited to share those with people that might be listening to the podcast somewhere down the line. But yeah, I totally agree. And so with that in mind, for those that are listening, maybe they don't really know us, or they haven't heard of us, or they don't know us that well, maybe a quick, not like the author bio, but the the rambling version of our story and what kind of authors we are. maybe you should start this out. What has your publishing journey been, maybe from the beginning, and what you're doing now, and what kind of books do you write?
Absolutely. So I am officially Lindsay A. Franklin. That's a whole thing. We could talk about why I'm Lindsay A. Franklin instead of just Lindsay Franklin. But yes, I'm Lindsay A. Franklin, and I am primarily a fantasy novelist, but I also write nonfiction. And yet another story. There's so many stories. When you've been in publishing for the number of years that you and I both have been, Paul, it's like the volume of stories and little tidbits and things to share is sort of overwhelming. So I'm going to
Mhm.
not dive into each and every one of these things at the moment. But yes, so I have nonfiction books that I've written, but I primarily consider myself a novelist. I also have a lot of experience on the production side of publishing, working as a freelance editor initially, and then now I am the managing editor at Enclave Publishing, who has published some of your novels and my novels. So that is what I consider my day job at this time. And so I've got a lot of insight into the back end of the publishing process, as well as an editor and a production person, and then also as an author.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I can't wait to pick your brain a little bit on some of the editing insights. And because I am not an editor myself, I have learned that it is really its own art, because just because you can write does not mean you can edit.
Mhm.
It's really its own thing. I've just really come to appreciate and respect that art, because it's hard. You can't be objective about your own work, right? So
Absolutely. And even when you are an editor, editors need editors too.
yeah,
So,
isn't that interesting, right?
yes,
Because you
absolutely.
can't, you're too close to it, right?
100%. So,
Yeah.
and you're right. It's a related but separate skill. So some people who are authors are also good editors, and a lot of editors are not writers at all. Their, primary or sole skill set is in editing, and they're brilliant at it. And so they're related, and there is sometimes overlap, but they are definitely separate skill sets.
Yeah. My favorite thing that I get back from a editor is that what they call like the developmental edit, where they really kind of do the overview and they talk about, like, the overall plot and the characters and kind of what works and what doesn't. Because that's what I'm always like so interested in hearing about. Like, obviously, before it gets published, I want to correct all the typos and the
Sure.
grammar errors and all that
Sure.
stuff too, all the sloppiness that I do
Yes.
on rough drafts. But I love to hear that insight, because I'm amazed at what I miss, because I think like, oh yeah, I've written 14 books, I know what I'm doing, and then they come back to me and they're like, what happened here when you left this giant plot hole, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, why? How did I miss that? So that
Yeah.
kind of stuff is just so priceless when you get in that editing. But we shall talk about editing on another episode. I don't want to dig too much into that, because as a professional editor, I want to pick your brain a little bit more on a later episode.
Yes.
But yeah, so to continue what we're talking about, I'll just kind of briefly say, I started, as I said in the beginning, I started not knowing much, but kind of when I finally started to get my act together a little bit, I wrote a science fiction book, and I was lucky enough to get picked up by a traditional publisher, the publisher you work for, Enclave Publishing, who was great to work with. I had a great time working with them. So I did that science fiction trilogy. And then I had this idea, when that was all done, for an urban fantasy. And at the time, Enclave it wasn't really what they were looking for, which happens a lot. And it's
Yes.
really, anyone that's been, like, you can't take that personally, right? Anyone that's been in the industry, it's just might not be exactly what they're looking to publish, or maybe they've published a title that's too similar, or, so many
Mhm.
reasons. So whatever. So that happened, and that kind of made me start thinking, well, I like this story, and I want to publish it. Maybe I should try this whole indie route that I've been hearing so much about. So that's when I really started studying and looking into independent publishing. And so that's what I do with that book and all my books since. And I've really found it to be like awesome. I love it. I love the indie publishing route because it's so flexible and you could be so nimble with it, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't have to wait that long time for publishing. I can just, as soon as the editing's done, boom, I could throw it up on Amazon and see how it does. Now, of course, there's give and take, right? There's a lot of heavy lifting you have to do if you're independent. You
Mhm.
have to do everything's basically on your shoulders, all the marketing, all the promotion, um, just even the technical like publishing itself and all that stuff and connecting with the right editor and cover designer and all that stuff. But again, it might come down to personality. And this
Mhm.
is maybe like a struggle we'll talk about in a different episode, like the indie or traditional, like, where do you fit? Because that I would have liked to hear about that when I was first starting too. Like,
Mhm.
because I didn't even know there were two routes. So just to be able to hear that broken down, like, oh, that one sounds like it fits my personality more. Like I think
Yeah.
like just right off the bat, traditional is someone that they love writing, but they don't even want to deal with all the other stuff. They just like, okay, when
Mhm.
I finish, boom, I want to hand it off and then let someone else take care of it so I can write my next book, right?
Yep.
Which is a totally legitimate perspective. But the indie, I don't know. It's just there's just this fun, like entrepreneurial excitement to it too. So yeah,
Yeah.
again, like it depends who you are, it depends your personality, but we can talk about that later. So yes, I've independently published the rest of my stuff and learned a lot about advertising and promotion and that kind of thing. So I'm excited to share what I've learned, and hopefully it can be helpful again to all the writers out there. And yeah, so I think that just about wraps it up. Do you have any closing thoughts on this pilot episode?
I am just really excited. I'm excited to share what we've learned. I feel like you and I have a lot of parallel, overlapping experiences, and yet different perspectives. We have expertise in different areas of the industry, and so what I'm hoping that we can bring to people who are interested in the publishing industry, writers who might be newer, or writers who are maybe in a position like me, where I'm a traditional publishing girl, but I am looking to maybe make a jump to being a hybrid author. And
Oh, come
so
to the dark side.
I'm excited. I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to learn about that. And it's our industry is one that changes all the time. All the time. So before I signed my first contract, I had done a ton of research about indie publishing because I was considering that option as well. But at this point, that research is, oh my goodness, 10 years old. And so
Yeah.
everything is different. Everything is different. The technology changes, the marketing changes, what's working, what isn't, it changes so fast. And so you really have to stay up on it. So I feel like we have a lot to share, and I'm really excited to bring that to writers who are interested in hearing what we have to say.
Yes, 100%. Totally agree. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I hope this was a good introduction into what we're all about in this podcast. And again, we hope it can be helpful to all you writers out there. And so we hopefully will see you on our next episode. So for today, signing off. Bye.
Bye.